Hey everybody, and welcome back to Grounds Family Farm. Today we're going to have the surgery update that you've all been waiting for, to tell you how Kimberly's surgery went. Got some clips from that day and then some afterwards just telling you how it did go down. But first we got to take care of some chores. Recently our American breast chickens have started laying, and they're just laying on the ground right now. We don't really like that because it takes the risk of the eggs getting damaged, things like that. So we had this nesting box that we'd put in with our other chickens at first, but the turkeys kept getting up in it and knocking it over and tearing it up. So we pulled it out. So we're going to pull the legs off it today and actually mount it to the tractor that they're in and see how they do. Hopefully they'll start using this. I'm not sure if they will or not, but we're going to give it a shot and try, because we've got it laying around not doing anything. And it'll be really helpful if their eggs will stay clean and off the ground. So first, we've got to take the legs off because it's initially was made to just set up in there, but the way the tractor is to move around, it'll be easier to mount it. It's got mounting holes back here where you can mount it to the side with screws. So that's what we're going to do after we take the legs off. So we're fixing to get started with that. We want to bring you along with us. But like I said, you'll have to stick around and we'll give you a good update of Kimberly's surgery. The first things to getting this done is we have to take out these trays on the end because they're blocking part of the screws, and they should just slide out. They're a little difficult because they're made where they won't just pop out easily. If you pull the metal up, they've got little catches, they just slide right out. So we're going to take out both sides of those, and then okay, these legs, each one has 3 bolts to it. Abs, you got the screwdriver?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to put the screwdriver here to hold this part so it won't twist. Sorry about the noisy roosters, they won't be quiet. We're just going to loosen all of them first on this leg. Well, maybe all the legs, that way it's... we can just take them out by hand. We bought this for the other chickens, and for some reason, even though we had another spot for the turkeys, they just kept laying in this, and whenever they would jump up in it, it would knock it over, and it would, if there was any eggs in it, it would tear up the eggs, and it was tearing up this. We'd have to put it together every day. So rather than letting them tear it up, we just pulled it out of there and haven't used it. But we brought it over here by the breast because we were waiting for them to start laying to use it, and now they have, so that's what we're going to do. And so I don't lose all these screws, I'm just going to put the screws back in. Do what?
Can I try to get it off?
Yeah, you can.
Me too?
Yeah. Just don't lose that nut on the bottom. Because like I said, if we don't put them back on these legs, we'll end up losing them. We won't have them if we ever pull it out of here. We also plan to butcher some of these breast roosters because there's a bunch of roosters in here right now that we don't need. And that's part of the reason why they're so noisy. Yeah, watch out. Yeah, it's a little tight. Oh, it's going now. You can do the other side. Oh, if you leave that in there, we could have pulled it right out since it was upside down like that. If you, next time, don't pull the screw out because they'll stay in there, and we can just put the nuts back on without having to pull all the screws out. Oh, yeah. Oh, uh-oh. Did you lose it?
Uh-oh.
Oh, Izzy, you're fired.
No, you can't fire me.
Hang on, don't. Oh, looky there.
Found it.
Okay, you're rehired.
What about me?
You didn't get fired.
Oh. I'm an employee of the month.
Yep, Abby said she's employee of the month. Okay, y'all work on that side, I'll work on this side. Uh-oh. Now I dropped it. Maybe I'm fired. Okay, y'all get to finish the work. Don't rehire me.
You're rehired. What do I do with the screw?
What?
There's a screw still in there.
Leave the screw in there, just hold the nut.
These are much easier.
Yeah, and then just leave those in there. and then I'll go through and put the nuts back on after you pull the leg off. Or if y'all want to put them on, do that, but just make sure that they're tight when you put them back. Now the next thing we're gonna do is, turn around where y'all can see, on the back of this, let me just pull this out because it'll be easier that way. I'm glad I finally figured out how those come out of there, because I was always wondering what they always hung up on. Okay, on the back, it's got 3 screw holes that we're gonna use as, let me see the tape measure. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure these first and see at what distances they are. Okay, so this is not going to be the easiest because they're not exact, but okay, so 14 5/8 and 28 5/8. So 14 5/8, 28 5/8. Can you remember that? So what we're going to do is put it somewhere in here. I've got 3 screws. We're going to try to put these screws up where I can just hook it on there. So it's going to have to be exact placement. So wish me luck on that. Let's see.
I remembered what it was.
What?
I remembered what it was.
Did you?
Just kidding, I did not remember.
So if we do that one like right in the middle, that'll give it some support. So let's do that. Let's go.
So did we raise them or?
What?
Like what?
What'd you say?
Did we raise them from babies?
Yes. Okay.
I didn't know that. The roosters are super sweet and they will never.
We bought them as babies. I mean, we ordered them, but okay. 14 5/8 is right there. Now we just gotta go down.
Roosters are sweet. Yeah. They wouldn't hurt a fly, would you? Yes, they would. 'Cause they like. Oh, so that's how we get on the rooster. Step on the bucket. That is so. Don't knock
Okay. So now that we have this, we're gonna see how good of a job we did. Okay, hand it to me right here because I don't want it to knock over the camera.
I carried it.
Okay, grab the door.
I want it.
Huh? Don't knock over the camera. Okay. Moment of truth. We're fixing to find out how good of a job Abby did.
What me? That one's in.
Which one's in? Are they all in now? Yep, all in. Okay, is we are ready now. Okay. Oh, so now we're just going to slide these trays in. And the tractor is sitting on a hill right now, so I don't know if these will actually slide down in these good enough right now. And maybe we have to move the tractor for it to work. Here, hang on, you're gonna break it. But we'll give it a shot and see how this works, and if it doesn't, we'll figure out something else. Okay, so here is their new laying box or nesting box. Hopefully they use it, but we'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, all these roosters except for maybe 2 are going to be coming out of here soon. And so it's not going to be near as crowded once that happens. Not near as noisy either, because those roosters are noisy. Okay, hopefully they get in there and try it out. But we'll just sit down for a minute. Okay, so we got that project done. Like I said, we're fixing to get into about Kimberly's surgery. That way y'all can hear how that went. But we're gonna go somewhere a little bit quieter to do that. We just pulled into the hotel. We're here the night before Kimberly's surgery tomorrow. We have to be there super early in the morning, so we decided to stay the night in a hotel overnight that's just across the street. That way we don't have to leave our house at like 3 o'clock in the morning. But since y'all have been sent so many kind thoughts, prayers, and all that, we really appreciate that. We're going to bring you along the journey with us. I don't know how much filming we'll do, but I'm going to try to document it pretty well so that y'all are here with us and kind of give y'all updates so you know what's going on. Hey everybody, so it's the day of surgery. It's 5:30 in the morning. We just showed up at the hospital, got checked in, got hit with the bill, got that taken care of. So now we're going to the surgery waiting room to just wait for them to call her back, and then hopefully after a little bit we'll get things started and have some news for you. They've got Kimberly back now. They started surgery about 45 minutes ago. They were going to call when it started, but they got busy and they was a few minutes late calling. But so far, they said everything's doing good. I know that you're going to see this video after the fact, but I'm just going to do it kind of like updates as I get them. I'm going to try to film something about it. But we got up to the initial waiting room for the surgery area. Sat there for probably an hour and 15 minutes before they called her back. Maybe it was about an hour. I don't know. Seemed like a while though. They finally called her back, took her back. Then after they did the initial stuff, got her prepped and stuff, they let me go back to see her for a few minutes. They had to stick her a few times to get her blood because her vein rolled, and so she's not a fan of needles, so that was not a pleasant experience for her. While I was back there, they were, like I said, finished getting her prepped and everything, and the nurse looked, and the doctor had actually put in more orders for more blood work. So the nurse that was initially did it's very tender-hearted, so she didn't have the heart to stick Kimberly again since she knew that Kimberly did not like needles, and so she asked another nurse to do it. But they got her taken care of, got the extra blood they needed. She did fine with that. They gave her some medicine for the nausea because anesthesia usually makes her nauseous and everything afterwards. Talking to them, they said that after the surgery, it should take, I don't know, 3 to 4 hours. They'll call, let us know whenever it's updated, and then after that, she'll be in recovery for about an hour before we'll actually be able to see her. They said that she'll spend at least one night in the ICU, and so as long as everything goes good that first night, then they'll move her to a regular room after that. But while she's in ICU, she's going to have visitors up until 8 o'clock, and one at a time. So her mom's here too, so we'll probably swap out some. That way her mom's not here for just a dry run, I guess. And then tomorrow, I think being in a regular room, she'll be able to have more than just one. But that's where we are for now. Okay, so as you can see, we're not at the hospital anymore. I had good intentions of doing more recording at the hospital, but after the last update, things just got kind of crazy. It was a long day, and I just didn't get it done. So I'm going to give you an update about that. Sorry if the wind's bad, but that's just the way the weather is today. After the last update, she was in surgery for about 4 hours. They called a couple times during that period to give updates. Once surgery was completed, it was about 12:30. I think the doctor called on the phone because they told us we didn't have to wait in that one surgery waiting area, that they would call us to meet back up there, but he said he went out there and checked and nobody was there, so he was just going to call and said we didn't have to come back up there. So I talked to him. He said that everything that he was thinking they were going to have to do is what they had to do, and there wasn't anything extra, nothing out of anything that he had already explained to us. So that was good news. He told us that she'd be in recovery. She was going to the ICU for a day and then would be transferred to a regular room as long as everything was good. So initially they told us that we'd get to see her an hour after she'd been in recovery, thereabouts. But whenever they called back later, the nurse called after the doctor did, she said that we'd have to wait until she got a room before we could see her because, I don't know, something to do with whenever people are getting transferred to a room, they make you wait until they get a room before you can see them. Well, it took them 3 hours to get her a room in the ICU. So rather than get to see her an hour after she woke up, it was like 3 hours before we were able to see her. So they called us, went up to the ICU, got up there. She was alert, awake. I mean, pretty good spirits considering what she'd just gone through. Based on the way the bandages looked, I mean, it looked terrible on the back of her head. They had to shave her head part of the way up. And then, like I said, at that time, all we could see was a patch. It was gauze. It was all kind of bloody all down through there. But, like I said, she was awake and alert. Nurses were doing all their thing. Stayed in ICU. Had great care while she was in the ICU. The nurses there was great. We had a little bit of problems with the food. I figured with it being a hospital that we wouldn't have any issues with her having a gluten intolerance, but even with the ICU nurse putting on, he actually entered it as an allergy just to make sure that they didn't mess anything up. And the first night they'd sent her up teriyaki chicken, which teriyaki has soy sauce in it, which unless they order a special kind has wheat in it, which would be a gluten thing. So he called back down to the kitchen, had them make her a gluten-free hamburger. So they brought that up, and that was great. Throughout the night at the ICU, they was mainly regulating to make sure everything was right. They were checking, making sure that she was alert. They'd ask her a series of questions just to make sure that, since it was brain surgery, that everything was still, I guess, firing on all cylinders after that. And they would do that like every hour. Overnight, I think it got a little better where it wasn't as bad. Plus, they were administering pain medication by IV, and she was also taking pills at that time. The next morning, the doctor came in, checked her out. Well, first, before the doctor came, I don't remember which order it was now, but they had PT and OT come in. They got her out of bed. She was able to walk around for a minute, and then the doctor came in and said that she was good and could be moved to a regular room and to regulate the medicines. Initially, we were told that we were only going to be there 2 days, and that's what the pre-authorization was for the insurance. But whenever he came in that morning, he said it'd probably be Saturday before she went home. And I don't know if he thought something was different, or if they'd just rather deliver good news later rather than bad news of having to get to go home early or extend the stay. So the next day, which would have been Thursday, she got transferred to the regular room. Got down there. I know it's not the ICU, but I mean the room itself, I mean it was a larger room, but just the equipment stuff seemed a lot older and more run down. I mean it all worked, but you could just tell that it was nothing like the ICU, which we get that on the care and all. But got down there, they didn't have pillows in the room at the time for her bed. Took them forever to find those because they were out on that floor. The nurse she got that day was a resident. She wasn't the greatest. She didn't check on Kimberly much, and whenever Kimberly's needing something, it took her a while to respond. And a lot of times she would send the tech instead of doing it herself, which to me, I mean, that's a pretty big problem. If somebody needs to see their nurse, and I get if she's busy, but the problem is the nurse's station was like 2 doors in the hallway, like 2 doors down from where Kimberly's room was. And I went by several times and she would just be there playing on her phone. Lunchtime rolled around, and 12 o'clock, or it was like 11 something, Kimberly asked what time they served lunch, and she said noon. And she's like, okay. And so 12 o'clock rolled around, it still wasn't there. About, 1 o'clock, finally Kimberly buzzed and was like, what time is lunch going to get served? They're like, oh, you haven't been served? And she's like, no, I haven't gotten it. So they called down there, had them make a plate, and they brought it up, and they had on the ticket that she was had a gluten allergy and had the gluten-free vegetables she's supposed to have. We open it up, it's pork chops smothered in gravy, and it's got 2 helpings of stuffing for her 2 gluten-free vegetables that she was supposed to have. So had an issue with that. We called back down there. We was like, this is not gluten-free. And at this time it was 1:30. And so she's like, well, I'll call and try to get them to fix it. And we're like, how long is that going to take? Because the first time she called, it was like 30 minutes longer for them to bring a tray up. And you could tell it was the pre-cooked stuff, so I don't know why it took so long. And the fact that they'd already messed up the gluten stuff, this is the second time now that they'd messed it up. So I just told Kimberly, I was like, I'll run across the street. There was on the border, and they have gluten-free protein bowls or something like that. And so Kimberly told me what she wanted. I ordered it. I went and picked it up. So we actually had to bring lunch back. They sent the house manager up, which he's over that whole wing of the hospital, to talk to us about the food issues. And he said that they'd actually been having trouble with the kitchen from other people, that we weren't the first complaint. He goes, I know this doesn't make it better, but I just want you to know that you're not the only one. We've been made aware of the problem. I'm fixing to go to a meeting with all the directors. And he said, we're going to address it then. So they did that. Sent him, he went down, and they actually sent the kitchen managers up later, and they were apologizing. Said that they weren't there for that shift that it happened on, but that they'd make sure her stuff was right for their shift, and they would let the day shift know the next day. So it went on, and that was all fine and good. It was getting a little later in the day, and Kimberly was needing pain medication. It was time. It actually been a little overtime for her to get it because she was trying to stretch it out as long as she could. And called for the nurse. She went in. Well, she didn't flush the IV first. She just immediately went with the medicine. Well, the IV blew. And so Kimberly's hand puffed up with all the stuff that she'd pumped in, everything. Don't even know if she put it all in or not. And so she was apologizing. She tried to put another IV in. She couldn't get it done and just kept digging around in Kimberly's arm. She's finally, she goes, I need somebody else to try. Can you have the charge nurse come in here? So she's like, yeah. Well, it's about an hour later. They still haven't come to put in IV and properly administer the pain meds. So at that time, Kimberly's mom, because I was actually going to surprise Kimberly with a birthday cake for her birthday because we thought she was going to be in there all day for her birthday. So I was at Nothing But Cakes picking up a cake for her, and she called and she said they still haven't got this IV in. So her mom went up there and was like, hey, she still doesn't have the IV. They was like, well, the PIC team, it's after hours. The PIC team's going to do it. It's going to take them a while, whatever. And then her mom's like, is there not anybody in this hospital that can put an IV in? And they're like, well, the charge nurse is like, well, I can try. And so she went in there, got it first shot. She was great. And then left after they did the IV. Well, I got back at that time, and it'd been like 30 minutes or an hour after they'd put in the IV, and they still hadn't come back with pain meds. It's about an hour, I guess. No, it'd been 30 minutes. And so Kimberly buzzed, was like, hey, I need my pain meds. And the nurse, rather than go down herself, sent the tech down there to tell her that it was going to be 5 more hours before she could have it. And we're like, how in the world? And she's like, well... And then she's like, I don't know. I was like, well, have the nurse come back down here because we want to talk to her. So we waited about 30 minutes and the nurse still hadn't come. So I went up to the front and she's there playing on her phone. I was like, hey, did the tech not tell you that we were needing you down there? And she goes, no, which I don't believe because this tech was amazing. She did more work than Kimberly's nurse did the whole time we were there. I mean, she was a hustler. She was in there checking on Kimberly, like I said. She was great. No complaints with her. No complaints with any of the other staff. And so she's like, no. And I was like, okay, well, she needs to, well, is there something I can help you with? I was like, yes, your patient wants to see her nurse. She needs you down there. And she's like, okay. So we go down there. 15 minutes rolls around. She still hasn't come in. I mean, I was just talking to her, like I said, 2 doors down. Asked her to come on down. She never did come. And then finally she came in with a charge nurse. And the charge nurse was telling her, was saying, giving the excuse that even though the nurse did the stuff improperly, that the medicine still is in her system and it still counts as the dosage, which doing a Google search, which I know that's not 100%, but it says it's not, if an IV blows, that the medication, whatever they're administering, doesn't absorb into the system or hit the bloodstream like it should, and so it's not going to be very effective. And so we were like, well, she's still in pain, and I mean, it's not our fault that the nurse didn't flush it first and make sure that it was a good IV before she just punched the meds in. So she said, well, I called the surgeon and he gave a one-time authorization for another dose of the pain medication, which with the good IV, she flushed it, put the meds in, flushed again, and the pain meds went in good and is actually effective and working for Kimberly. And so that nurse probably, just the bedside manner, how much caring she shows or not caring, no sympathy, empathy, anything like that. It's just, I'm not sure she's in the right field, but that's neither here nor there. So after that issue, the house manager came up again. We explained all that happened. He was in utter shock that she was sending the tech to deliver this information and to come to the patient's room rather than her do it herself. He's like, that's just unacceptable. And he said that her supervisor was already gone, the one that was in between him and her, for the day, but he was going to talk to her the next day, and he said, I'll make sure that she's not y'all's nurse for tomorrow. It's like, okay. And then it was right at close to shift change at that time, and the evening shift came in, and the nurse then, you could tell there was probably coming in a little bit of apprehension because I'm sure that the previous shift filled her in that we'd had issues with them, so I think she's a little nervous, but she was great. She took care of Kimberly well all night long, had no issues with her, and like I said, she was just excellent. The next morning, that nurse that relieved the overnight nurse, she was great too. Very caring, took care of stuff, and like just, you could tell she was experienced and had good bedside manner. It rolls around to breakfast, and Kimberly gets her breakfast tray, And lo and behold, she was supposed to have an egg omelet and I don't know whatever else, but the eggs were the protein. And so we open up and it's potatoes, I forgot something else, and then a muffin. And so we were like, this is not what's on the list, because they'd scratched out the eggs on her list, which she had a dairy thing marked on there too, but it was for like just like drinking whole milk or something like that, so they was having to send soy. But I don't know if it's because the omelet had cheese on it or what, but they didn't send it. And they put a wheat muffin on there instead. So we called again, we was like, hey, we've had this problem yesterday. They said they were going to take care of it, but here is gluten again on her tray. And I was like, plus she doesn't have a protein because y'all took the eggs off. And so they called in and said, so what do you want? And I was like, the eggs, it's fine. Just send the eggs up and that'll work. So they finally sent the eggs up and that was good. And it was a little bit later, is actually the guy who made her tray, and he came up to the room, apologized to her. He actually brought her egg whites. I guess I don't know if it's an egg white omelet or just scrambled egg whites or what, but he brought those up and was apologizing and said that he wasn't thinking. He just saw that her tray was light, so he threw the muffin on there. So not a big issue with that. We didn't even say anything about that because, I mean, he owned up to his mistake. That's the big thing, because some of them were not even owning up to what they were doing. They were just in denial. And that's my biggest thing. If you mess up, just admit to it. We'll move on. All is great. So he came up, said, hey, your tray looked light without anything else. So I threw the muffin on, just trying to give you something else. He goes, I didn't even think about it having wheat in it. So brought up that, and so that was great. Kimberly was like, no, it's no big deal. It's fine. Appreciate the thoughts, even though she wasn't able to have it. But it was nice of him to think that, and I mean, we appreciate that about it. So then the doctor came back in and saw Kimberly again. He's like, or the surgeon. And he's like, okay, he's like, you need to be up walking. We're like, she has been up. She's been going to the bathroom and stuff on her own. She had taken a sponge bath shower, however you want to call it. She couldn't get the incision wet yet. She can't do that till the staples come out 2 weeks after the surgery. So he got her up. They walked up and down the hall, and he's like, well, he goes, you're doing pretty good. He's like, if you're managing the pains with the pain pills and not needing the IV meds, he goes, you can go home this afternoon. So that's where we are at that point. So everybody got excited. We were like, yes, finally getting home, because she was about, after all the issues we'd had with the one nurse and the meals and stuff, she's like, I don't want another meal here. So it was late in the afternoon, so she skipped lunch, and as soon as we got her out of there, it was like 2 or 2:30. We stopped by Wendy's and I grabbed her a salad, and she ate that on her drive home. Got home, got her settled. Before that, he actually took the gauze and bandage off of her incision, and I haven't counted the staples, but I mean, it literally looks like a zipper on the back of her head. It's pretty crazy. Probably won't show that in this video, but maybe the next update we do, we'll have that in there, because I'm sure some people will not want to see it, some will. It doesn't really look that gross. It's just crazy how many staples that they had to put in there. But the incision looks good other than that. I've been giving her a hard time because she's been keeping her hair in a bun on top of her head, and I told her she looks kind of like a Japanese or samurai warrior with her top knot, and plus it's shaved around the bottom, which she's not a big fan of that, but she's growing into it. I don't think she's going to keep that style, but she's got good humor about it. But right now, she's, like I said, she's home. She's on restrictions for 5 weeks. That's when we go back and see the surgeon. She's not able to bend over, lift, push, or pull anything over 10 pounds. She's not able to drive, assistance with stairs, because she's going to, with the part of the brain that they were working on, it's what affects your balance. And so they said she's going to be dizzy and have dizzy spells and balance problems for a while, probably for a few weeks. And so as soon as she gets over those, that's when I'll go back to work. I don't think I'll be off the whole time that she's off, but I'll be here as long as she needs the help and to get things done. Because once I go back, I should be able to manage it where I can get meals and stuff fixed that's easy to prep. That way I can, if I have to run home for a few minutes, I can, just to make sure everything's done. But I think she'll be okay after a few weeks to get around once the dizzy spells are over. But that's where we are right now. Like I said, it's probably a long update, and I know some of y'all, with all the messages, prayers, comments, everything we'll be getting, will want to hear this. Some may not, but it is what it is. But all in all, she's doing pretty good, and I'm not sure when you'll see her back on camera, but maybe we can get a glimpse of her every now and then until she's better. But we appreciate all the prayers that you've been getting, all the support, and everybody watching. We really thank you a lot for that. And we'll catch you next time on Grounds Family Farm.